You look at music, we all have a connect with music. Everyone feels that, hey, even I'm entitled to have my own version of what this particular song means to me. So I think the nature of copyright in music by itself is so complex compared to a lot of other forms of intellectual property that we deal with. You like something, I can recreate it in French, in German, in Tamil, in Punjabi. Now you have people collaborating from one part of the world to another. Then they have their own separate representation. So I just feel there's a lot of nuance when it comes to copyright in music, and that's why it's a very complex ecosystem. Those also are businesses where you need assistance in terms of business affairs, legal advice. We have lots of clients. I mean, today, most of them in the music business, right? AP, Divine, Badshah, Justine, almost all of them have their own entities and their own setup where they control the IP, but they're also setting up their own record labels and trying to do more and grow it more. Someone like Jani, for example, is a great example with Desi Melodies, who we've acted for, Kripa Records that he's now set up with B-Prac. So many times in the midst of a crisis, or when you're caught up in something that is going to affect your brand, before you know it, events are getting cancelled, contracts are getting set aside, you're being terminated, dropped. So dealing with the aftermath of all of that, and it cuts both ways, right? Even as companies making those decisions, saying, hey, is this enough for us to have such a drastic reaction? We're not all above law, right? I don't think anybody is above the law. You got to do your bit. You got to sort of introspect. You also carry a responsibility when you're public facing talent. If you want to influence, in 2012 there was a sacrosanct right to receive royalty was introduced, where it said that even if you, Kabir, give up 100% of copyright to me, you still have an inalienable right to receive royalty. So you could receive a one-time payment, but you still have the right to keep receiving this royalty every time I end up, or the world ends up consuming your work or utilizing it, right? A project can be sitting with you for years before it sees light of day, and then once it's seen light of day, what is the recurring value that it's adding to your life? For a lot of creators, it's their, provident fund, gratuity, pension, everything, right? So that's the work that I think goes in behind the scenes to work with creators. It's so easy. It's become a modern day version, I think, of locker rooms, where you have boys with more boys championing more boys. And I'm all for it. I don't think you championing somebody in terms of music has to not be merit based.
Right. In today's episode of Celebpreneurs, we have Priyanka Khimani. Priyanka is a celebrity entertainment music lawyer. I have her list of achievements over here. There are quite a lot, so I've cut them short to around 5 lines. She is the founder of Khimani and Associates. If I start naming these celebrities on the music and entertainment scale who she has dealt with, it's like the who's who. There's A.R. Rahman, AP Dhillon, Shraddha Kapoor, Prateek Kuhad, Divine, Badshah, Shreya Ghoshal, Arijit Singh, Sushmita Singh, Lata, Mangeshkar. You get the point. Now, moving on to Priyanka. Priyanka, first of all, thank you so much for coming to the office, and welcome to the show Celebpreneurs. First thing really which I wanted to ask you was, how did you get into the legal profession, and then how did you get into the music and entertainment side of it?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for that glowing introduction. I appreciate that so much. How did I get into the legal side? I've been a part of entertainment, I think, for a long time, dabbling in different roles, whether it was theatre, writing, radio, film and TV, lots of random jobs as a young kid, right? Kabhi kisi ko assist kar diya, sometimes doubled up as, just somebody's assistant, or on a set filling in as a body double, hair double, all sorts of.
Body double, which like film or TV series?
It was for an ad actually, where I was filling in for the actress so that the shot can be ready, right? Hum color test kar rahe kapdon ka, etc. So I just feel it was a big part of my growing up years, and I did a lot of theatre professionally with Bharat Dabholkar.
Professionally? With Bharat Dabholkar? Okay.
I used to be the lead in one of his plays, so did that for a while. I assisted a bunch of different writers, and I think with all that experience, then once I went to law school, started practicing law, and entertainment just became a natural extension of everything that I had learned and picked up.
I mean, she's almost as talented as me. We'll come to that part later.
I'm trying.
So, I was reading your profile, which Mosam had sent me. Now, what makes the music industry a complex market? Because see, now normally when people talk about the music industry, you talk about, okay, the new things which are coming out, the remixes which are coming out, the film music, OTT music, the independent artists. But this is not a topic which is really sort of discussed at all. That the music industry is a complex market. So how so?
Music copyright, right? And we were just discussing this recently also with somebody else, saying film and TV is relatively a business that is kind of set, right, in its ways. And now of course with OTT we've seen some amount of disruption, but largely we know कि अच्छा ये revenue streams are these. एक बार ये picture बन गई, एक बार ये TV series बन गई, I know very clear cut revenue streams that I'm going to see, whether they're territories, whether they're on platforms, it's on satellite, digital. With music, right, the complication comes with just the nature of copyright. एक तो ये है कि you have a song, you're going to keep recreating it in as many different ways and means. There's different interpretations, right? It's easier to do it with music than it is, say, with a film script. There are only these many remakes, there are only these many adaptations, right? You look at music, we all have a connect with music. Everyone feels that, hey, even I'm entitled to have my own version of what this particular song means to me.
Right.
So I think the nature of copyright in music by itself is so complex compared to a lot of other forms of intellectual property that we deal with. Then you add to that how all penetrating music is in our lives, right? For example, even with this podcast, I'm sure there is an element of an opening title or a closing one, something in the background. We're on social media, we go to a pub, you go to watch a cricket match, you are at a coffee shop, it's everywhere, right? So I feel that again makes it complex because every single place where we can consume music, listen to music means that there is a revenue stream for that music. So keeping a track of it, keeping a tab on how much people interpret music, adapt it, I think that's what makes it complex. And then the cross-border nature, right? You like something, I can recreate it in French, in German, in Tamil, in Punjabi. Now you have people collaborating from one part of the world to another. Then they have their own separate representation. So I just feel there's a lot of nuance when it comes to copyright and music, and that's why it's a very complex ecosystem.
Okay, and I mean, this copyright issue as far as India is concerned, I feel has really only picked up probably in the last few years.
Yeah.
Because I think the best examples would be if you look at some of our favorite songs from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it sort of started going down. A lot of them are inspired from these English songs or some Korean song or some other songs and all. Now that element has come in that they have to be careful because of course social media plays a big part.
And the world's become a smaller place, you're right, it's easy to discover.
Yeah. So that is there. Now one keeps reading about, the different entertainment deals, etc. you've done. For the ones who are not specifically aware of it, let's talk about some of your most talked about entertainment deals. And just go ahead. I mean, you 10, 12, 15 clients, we've got enough time. The water's there on the table, so you go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm going to try and respect privilege and only talk about deals that are already in the public domain.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because most of the times I get asked that why do these people need a lawyer? Ab karte kya ho, right? Or the other perception is that I only need a lawyer to step in when I'm in some legal trouble, which means if I have some court case going on or if I'm in some criminal matter or some controversy. Yes, that is one big part of what we end up doing, crisis, reputation, etc. But the other part is the day-to-day transactions in the entertainment business, right? Now, whether it's, take examples of someone like Shilpa Shetty, who's invested in Badshah, right? And we did act for her on that transaction to now what Badshah has become, and then everything that happens within the life cycle or the ecosystem of that company, right? So those are also the kind of transactions where we'd step in, advise, handhold, decide, okay, what is the landscape looking like, what's next, day-to-day challenges of running an ongoing business. Then you can have something like, actors who are always investing in their own businesses, have makeup lines that are being set up, right? Or product lines, skincare. So that's a vast majority of the kind of transactions that we'll be brought in to advise on, right? Because look at it, right? They themselves then become the entrepreneur. It's like advising any other startup founder, but keeping in mind that, hey, there's an intangible quality to this celebrity, and that's also lending some sort of goodwill and brand value to this entire enterprise. Then the life cycle of that, right, from their fundraisers to then someone picking it up, acquiring it, the platform itself having an IPO, their exit. So I think our job is to assist them through their entire life cycle. So that's one kind of M&A activity that we'll see. The other is you will notice a lot of talent starts setting up their own production houses, their own record labels, their own management companies, and so on and so forth. Those also are businesses where you need assistance in terms of business affairs, legal advice. We have lots of clients. I mean, today, most of them in the music business, right? AP, Divine, Badshah, Justine, almost all of them have their own entities and their own setup where they control the IP, but they're also setting up their own record labels and trying to do more and grow it more. Someone like Jani, for example, is a great example with Desi Melodies, who we've acted for, Kripa Records that he's now set up with BPRAC. So I think for us alone, just I think collectively we must have done transactions worth easily about 250 crores last year in the music sector alone, right? Wow. I'm not even touching the rest of it. Hospitality again for us is a big sector today. Passion is obviously one. We also work with somebody like Dhaval, who has Scarlet House now with Malaika Arora. So I think for me, anything with a celebrity attached to it as an entrepreneur, as talent, is going to need our involvement and guidance and structure what the life cycle of that should look like.
So the day-to-day stuff of the businesses is very important. You need to, because they are businesses, they are entrepreneurial ventures at the end of the day. So that is a lot where you come in. And the second part, what I get is, if you ever need tickets for Lollapalooza, Coldplay, then you're there on what, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, I don't know.
Not call me.
I put it out there. But okay, crisis management skills we come to next. If you could elaborate on two media disputes or two legal controversies which you've handled before, which we can talk about publicly, of course, like you said.
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. I feel in today's times, we're especially just battling one crisis after another. Anything and everything becomes a reputation issue, right? It's so easy to cause damage, but it's so difficult to mitigate that. And I see it from largely the side of the person that is in the eye of the public storm. And it's not easy, right? Of course, one part of it is to have to deal with the media, which includes journalists, publicists, and how is that being presented, carried forward, reported, etc. The other is the legal repercussions of it, right? Sometimes we have instances where somebody could be facing an arrest. Before we know it, FIRs are filed in multiple places in the city. You're panicking, thinking, do I need a bail? Do I need to, seek protection, etc. And the other element of it is, how do you respond? Do I just keep quiet? Do I say something? And the commercial repercussions and ramifications, right? So many times in the midst of a crisis, or when you're caught up in something that is going to affect your brand, before you know it, events are getting cancelled, contracts are getting set aside, you're being terminated, dropped. So dealing with the aftermath of all of that, and it cuts both ways, right? Even as companies making those decisions, saying, hey, is this enough for us to have such a drastic reaction? I don't think any of those decisions are made lightly. It's not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction saying, oh fine, there's one sort of tweet that is negative, so let's just drop a multi-million
many
dollar
times
contract.
that's what it looks like that it is a knee-jerk reaction, because again it's happening so much that you sort of start feeling it's a knee-jerk reaction. Itna jaldi, how can they take a decision?
And I think that's where someone like us would come in, right? To help parties evaluate that, is the reaction proportionate to what has actually happened? And I think it differs on a case-to-case basis. We've worked with a variety of different creators, talent, executives even, right, who get caught in all sorts of public controversy, right, from Me Too to having said something that has not been taken well, to maybe even jokes that are in poor taste, or sometimes just something said innocently but that has such a severe backlash because it was just tone deaf. But I feel the other part of it that has emerged, because I think every time people go through a crisis and have had to work alongside someone like me then to restore that brand and that reputation, is when they realize that, look, prevention is better than cure.
Oh, definitely.
So I personally feel going forward, that part is actually going to pick up more and is going to make people more aware. I'll give a simple example, right? Increasingly now, we'll start reading a lot of material. We'll start listening to a lot of songs, not just to assess that, hey, is it infringing, not infringing, but do you think it's tone deaf? Do you think there's a level of risk attached in terms of public backlash? I want to talk about this element, I want to drive a point home because it's important to talk about this subject in our society, but do you think it's going to not sit well with certain communities or certain religious groups? I don't think there was a time before this where we were asked to do this sort of risk assessment, but today it's the need of the hour, and increasingly I tell a lot of talent, especially the younger lot, because everyone tries to undermine it. The attitude has also become, okay, kisko phone lagao, who do I know, who can pull what strings, and that's not always helpful, right? In my experience, I think it has backfired more than anything else, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we're not all above law, right? I don't think anybody is above the law. You got to do your bit, you got to sort of introspect. You also carry a responsibility when you're public facing talent. If you want to influence, then that influence has to come with responsibility, and a part of your responsibility then is to get advice and to make sure you have the right counsel before you put something out into the world.
I agree. In fact, many times when I see a lot of celebrities put out certain tweets or Instagram stories or commenting on certain things, I'm like, boss, take me on as a consultant, just ask me before posting this, because this is going to blow up in 2 hours, because you are being stupid and you cannot be defended. You cannot. Yes, there are times when there is an overreaction by the netizens, that is the term which is used nowadays, but a lot of the times it is like, boss, this is not what you should have said. So that part I agree with you. There's a lot of introspection definitely which needs to be done. Now, you've done a lot for legal protection of artists, musicians, and content creators, what we've been talking about. What was the lack before? There was a lack in the understanding, was it in the awareness, what is the implementation, what was it?
I think all. I mean, yes, I want to say all, but like you mentioned a few minutes ago, right, when we started this chat, that in the last few years there's so much conversation around copyright, and that is partly true because we saw one of the most significant amendments in 2012. Think about it, only 13 years ago, right, where a lot of things were introduced. One of the most fundamental changes was this concept of right to receive royalties. Otherwise, historically, we've been a market where it was all one-time lump sum payment and then everything belongs to me. Think about it, because traditionally, historically...
So this thing happened in 2012, the royalty...
In 2012, there was a sacrosanct right to receive royalty was introduced, where it said that even if you, Kabir, give up 100% of copyright to me, you still have an inalienable right to receive royalty. So you could receive a one-time payment, but you still have the right to keep receiving this royalty every time I end up, or the world ends up consuming your work or utilizing it, right? Then you had that also being extended to performers, right? Which would include singers, performing musicians, actors. So the last decade or so has been spent in how do you implement it? How does it actually now move from the statute to the pockets of creators? And that's where the bulk of a lot of my time and advocacy and efforts and championing have been spent to educate, to sort of make sure that contracts are structured in a way that reflects this updated position. And not just, it doesn't end there, right? There's one thing to paper it. The other thing is it actually has to make your way to the different stakeholders that participated in creating a piece of work, whether it's movie, it's song, it's comedy. And I think that's been most of the heavy lifting over these last few years. It requires a lot of active dialogue with both sides, right? I can't do this in isolation, and I don't think it should be done. In fact, right now we're facing something similar for screenwriters, right? Where, because even they are writers, they are also authors, they are also entitled to this.
The whole movement which is happening in Hollywood, and of course
is of course happening here now. Finally, there's a copyright society that has received registration from the central government. Now again, how will the producers and the studios implement it? How is it going to apply to writers who are doing TV series, who are doing episodic engagements versus writers who are writing screenplay and dialogues for movies? Is it how does it work for theatrical? How does it work for features? So that are making it directly to OTT. So it'll be interesting to see how this shapes up, and I feel for me that's satisfying, because you work so hard into creating something. Sometimes I'm sure you understand this from experience also, that a project can be sitting with you for years before it sees light of day, and then once it's seen light of day, what is the recurring value that it's adding to your life? For a lot of creators, it's their provident fund, gratuity, pension, everything, right? So that's the work that I think goes in behind the scenes to work with creators.
Championing women's rights is something which we have been hearing very often in different spheres, but championing women's rights in the music industry, this is something which I heard for the first time. So what were the crucial missing pieces here?
The women.
No, as in like in what way
Think about it.
in what way were like in the music industry, etc., were they being affected?
There's barely any female representation, in my opinion, in the music industry,
Right.
both on the business side and the talent side. When I talk business, look at executives. Executives,
on the business side, I sort of
managers,
agree with you, but on the talent
right?
side,
Even on the talent side, sure, we've seen some of the bigger names that we know of. But if you look at a tier of, especially the current tier of independent artists today, there's a disproportionate number of male artists compared to female artists, right? Even when it comes to lineups, and I know when we do concerts or festivals, usually there's so much backlash in terms of, hey, why is there such a disproportionate number of female artists compared to male artists? That's because there is, you know, at a grassroots level, think about the people who are responsible for identifying these, you know, artists, giving them an opportunity, sort of striking deals with them. Taste makers are largely men, right? Decisions are being made, and I don't think even a lot of the younger lot actually doesn't recognize it. You know, it's so easy. It's become a modern day version, I think, of locker rooms, where you have boys with more boys championing more boys. And I'm all for it. I don't think you know, you championing somebody in terms of music has to not be merit based. But surely we're not saying that there aren't talented women in this country, right? I mean, we're also the land that has
to be maintained,
that's all. Lata Mangeshkar, who is, you know, one of the greatest singers that we've all known. You've got Sunidhi, you've got Shreya, you have a Justine, you have a Jonita. There's many more out there. So I feel, you know, just coming back to why this cause of, I don't even want to say it's a cause, right? I think it was just to create more awareness that, hey, there's a lot of us in the trenches, but it's not going to change the way we you know, perceive and receive our music talent till taste making doesn't change, till, you know, in the higher ranks in the leadership you don't have more women. And it's not to say that, okay, hire one female executive in your top rank. That's not cutting it either.
Tick mark is done.
Yeah, and I just feel sometimes we tend to take it the other extreme, right? The sort of tokenism. I see it sometimes even when we're curating panels saying, oh yeah, let's just pepper it with one female. No, don't do that. That's not helping, right? You want genuine dialogue so that you get perspective. And I feel all art, right, is subject to point of views. So how is that art going to be any different or interesting or refreshing if there isn't enough dissent, if there isn't enough variety in that, you know, decision making? So I just feel that's why it was important for me to talk about it and to just make more people more aware. And even today I feel I'm quite shameless in the way I do it. Sometimes I see a picture also when they're announcing a new deal or some new movement that has happened, or people who've gone and championed at a policy level, and I'll see that, you know, it's just a lot of men together. I know behind the scenes there were also a lot of women who helped that conversation. So I'll just very politely nudge one of them who I know to say that, look, do you not find something missing here? And I feel to their credit, a lot of people who understand it sometimes just need to be made slightly aware, saying, hey,
they're like, you're right, and you know, we'll get this done.
It's instantly course correction, right? And I think that's really all we need. Yeah, not हम शर्म के मारे बोलते नहीं, or we fear consequences, saying how is it going to be received, am I going to offend somebody?
But then that's the way sort of the change comes by, because you're saying otherwise it's going to sort of keep on.
And तरीका होता है, right? You're not shaming someone, because I always,
that is also very important.
Yeah, because I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, saying maybe you've just not realized because we haven't, because किसी ने हमको बताया नहीं है all this while. We've also, and गलती हमारी भी है, because you sit and feel bad and talk about it and keep it within that. But like I said, everything is a dialogue. You know, it doesn't hurt to just nudge somebody and say, hey, I don't think it's looking okay to me, and you'd be amazed 9 out of 10 times they're willing to change it.
Yeah, because I mean, it sort of suddenly just strikes them, and then they become aware of it, and like you said, in most cases it works out. So that is again a way of dialogue is important, but the way of doing dialogue is also very important.
Yes.
The way you're saying, putting it across. Now, one thing which I wanted to raise after we've spoken about so many things is, because you've started your own company, because you're doing so many things, you're involved in the celebrity world, it's also very important to bring this part out. Again, when I was reading your profile, the sort of great determination, these words, I mean, sort of it becomes cliche, but still, you were raised in a chawl in Mahim. Your parents ran a photocopying shop.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then to the extent which you've come right now, so was there like a thing which you used to think that, at a certain point of time, I want to get out of this place, I want to have a big bungalow, I want to have so much of finances, etc., etc. Did you think of things like that? How did you sort of get over here? Because you have achieved a hell lot. Your CV is intimidating, would be the right word to put it right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're saying it to me on a day where I think I need to hear it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you lose sight of, how far you.
Or just take a printout of your PDF and look at it every morning, so you'll be sorted.
Thank you, Kabir. That's very sweet. Thank you. Look, I feel a lot of the early years are survival. I won't deny. I won't deny that. But equally, it's that drive, right? That you're in such a horrible situation where you feel like, listen, there has to be an out. I have to get out of this, not only for yourself but also for those around you. And I think that's the biggest driving factor. It's not, and the end goal isn't that, gaadi chahiye, bangla chahiye, you need X amount of money in your bank account. I think that time the desire was just that, hey, this cannot be my environment, these can't be my circumstances, it has to get better than this. And I feel it was just early years was just with that singular goal of, I want to get out of this that I'm in. And that's not to say that, it's like, sure, the people around me were lovely. I think growing up like that teaches you so many different things, but the struggle that you go through day to day, the heartache, the friction, and I have to be brutally honest, I think I still deal with a lot of aftermath of that, right? Because everyone around you also can try and receive your success very differently.
Of course.
So I
because
think
everybody cannot get out of that level. So when they see it also, then there are different reactions.
Yeah. And there's different expectations of you as well. But I think the one singular factor was that, I know I can do better for myself and for my family. So this has to change. And I think that was one. The other was that and I think it's part of how I've been raised, that ab jo bhi kar rahe ho na, try to be absolutely the best at what you're doing. And I think even during my worst moments today, I try to remind myself of that, right? Especially when we're having, I think right now markets are bad, dealing with things where entertainment particularly is going through this sort of lull that we've never experienced before, right? And you got to remind yourself that no, you're never in it. You weren't in it for the money to begin with in the first place. You were in it to excel. And I think times like these really push you and test you as talent. That how much can you innovate when your back is against the wall, right? Because there has to be another level to unlock even from here. And that's actually what keeps me going, because I'm like, no, I'm not finished. This is not done yet.
And what do you do in your sort of free time and stuff? Like, read, Netflix, sleep, what?
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. I love spending time by myself. I practice yoga, I try and write. I'm always creating something, so everyone who's working closely with me, my immediate team will tell you I'm wanting to either launch some new initiative or create. There's a book I've been working on, or there's obviously the foundation that takes up a lot of my time. I try and mentor a lot of tech platforms. So I'll work closely with a lot of entrepreneurs because I'm very passionate about the entertainment tech space. I truly feel like it's one that we're going to see a lot of disruption in that sector, in India at least, because lots of interesting products exist outside. And I'm not talking about B2C products, I'm talking about a lot of B2B that will make this whole entire entertainment ecosystem more easy to navigate. Right? Like simple things that we discussed, that hey, copyright, why is music so complex? It is part of the reason it's also complex is because we've not embraced technology to the extent that we truly should be. So I think in the tech ecosystem, just adapting a lot of it for India, because we have so many beautiful languages, dialects, right? A lot of the people who are successful in the entertainment business, especially in dialects that are outside of, so to speak, Hindi, right? They're extremely good entrepreneurs but may not be savvy with just one language. So how am I catering to that demographic and making tech accessible to them? So that's something I'm very passionate about. So I spend a lot of my free time just looking it up, researching, working with a lot of entrepreneurs, saying how do you improve a particular product or bring something deeper and penetrated to India. So yeah.
And what series are you watching right now?
What series I'm watching? I am actually doing a rerun of Emily in Paris,
Rerun? Acha, okay.
I was in Paris recently, and I love the city. It was the first time ever that I went to Paris, and
Oh,
I just
okay.
wanted. Sometimes I watch something which I can just switch off and enjoy and let it run in the background. Also, for those who know me, know that I have a very, very bad track record of staying awake as soon as I switch something on. I think it's a mental cue that okay, now it's time to fall asleep. So I'm very bad
Lucky
at it.
you.
But right now I'm sort of watching doing a rerun between both Ted Lasso and Emily in Paris. So something just light-hearted and easy to watch.
Fair enough, fair enough. Last question, sort of to wrap it up. When did you start Khimani and Associates? What was your motivation behind starting that? And what are, I mean, if you have to sort of give very practical, real lessons to people who want to start up their own company,
Yeah.
whether it's in law or any other sphere, what would that be?
So I started the firm 11 years ago. We turned 11 in April this year. I started in 2014, April. My motivation behind starting the firm was very clear. I wanted to have a place that was very deeply rooted in culture that would outlast me, you, anybody else. It had to outlive the people that were part of the place, and I think that's one thing, even if I say so myself, everyone will agree in the legal profession that for the legal profession and for the law firm ecosystem, that's one thing we've done extremely well, is establish the correct culture. It was sacrosanct to me till date. It is the one thing that is absolutely important, and when I say that, I mean that the minute I spot a bad actor, I don't tolerate it, right? I say this to the team also. If something's not working out for you, if there is friction, try and talk to the person directly. If that person is still not a cultural fit, no matter how good they are at their job, if they're not a cultural fit, it's okay. It's okay to walk away from it. I think that's been my big learning over the years also, because you want to enjoy working with people. We're anyway in such high stress, high tension jobs today. So especially I feel like, as each year goes by, I feel like timelines have become shorter, budgets have become crunchier, and everything has to be acha, sasta, jaldi and turnaround time and this urgency culture. You're anyway dealing with so many stresses. You don't want that stress even in your workplace. So for me, really, I think culture was the defining point of why I wanted to have a place that I could, I feel, set the building blocks off and then let it just run on autopilot as far as that was concerned. In terms of lessons that I've learned, I think we'll need a separate episode to talk about entrepreneurship and lessons as a young founder, as a female founder, as a female lawyer, and just to run, and when you're running your own business, right, there's loads. But I think one of the few things is hire fast, fire fast.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah, because I think soon enough, and again,
if the person is fitting in or not and contributing
and you'll
to
know
the
it
company.
if you know what your starting point of culture is, right? In a lot of organizations, I think sometimes हम भूल भी जाते हैं. And culture is not something that is एक बार okay set in stone तो हो गया. Culture also
An
has to
ever-evolving
change,
thing.
right? It
Yeah.
has to. I mean, look at us post-pandemic and pre-pandemic. Who thought that we would have workplaces that were so dynamic in terms of the flexibility that each one of us has, and that's here to stay. So if I had a culture of, say, for example, people have to punch in at this time, punch out at that time, I cannot possibly carry it forward today, right? So one is to constantly check in with the organization and say, hey, here's where we are now. This is the baseline. And then it's so clear either, and if it's set well, I feel the system itself flushes out a bad actor. And you fire fast simply because it's not worth the headache. It's just not, and I think it's not worth the environment. So that's one thing. The other thing that I have learned is, again, the hard way, is to recognize the value of your time and the power of saying no. I think I say it enough and more times. Again, I'd be lying if I said that as an entrepreneur. From time to time, it doesn't give me, doesn't get to me or doesn't cause anxiety, right? Where you feel like, oh my God, like, why is, you want to work with somebody, but it's too low a price point. What is, is it really sustainable? Does it make sense, etc. Also, as you get, more sophisticated in what you do today, there's a certain brand value that we've also built, right? There's a certain power or influence that we are going to bring to a transaction or to a matter, and that has it has an intangible value to it, and that's really what people are, reaching out to you for. It may take me one phone call or 10 minutes to do something, but I've also spent 11 years mastering that craft, which is why I can do it so quickly, and that has to today command its price. I feel that realization, every entrepreneur has to know that, especially a service professional has to understand it, because we have a finite amount of time. You're not selling a tech product, you're selling personal services. So check in with yourself, check in with others, and then be happy to walk away from things that don't know how to value your time.
What amazing answers. But I think that's part of, being a lawyer, and especially in the celebrity music space.
बहुत गिर के सीखे हैं हम, so that is why we
नहीं वो हम सब गिर के सीखे. मैं तो इतनी बार गिरा हूँ, मुझे याद भी नहीं मैं कितने बार गिरा हूँ. But thank you so much for coming to the office, for talking to us. You said, of course, there are so many lessons that you've learned. So we'll have to transfer that to a different episode. Season 2 of Celebpreneurs, we're going to have Priyanka Khimani back, and she's also promised us how many 30 tickets of Coldplay. That's you don't have to give so many. I think 12 will be enough for me. But yeah, thank you so much for talking with us, Priyanka, and all the best for the future.
Thank you for having me.